I probably just talk loud anyway. All the theater training. Yes, I am known for the Maverick Heart books, which are all available on the shelf behind me, arranged prettily. The books come from three big moments in my life. One of my earliest memories is being 3 years old with my sisters, sitting on the floor watching first run Star Trek, the original series. And I imprinted on that immediately, and that followed me through the rest of my life. Science fiction of any kind, if there were spaceships, if there were ray guns, aliens, I was in. It could be terrible, I didn't care. Watch it, read it, loved it. The second thing was discovering the wave of queer independent cinema in the 80s. So movies like My Beautiful Laundrette, or Parting Glances, or Desert Hearts, things like that. The times that we got to tell our own stories and not be the villain and not be tragic and not die at the end. And then the third thing was becoming disabled after having not been disabled when I was younger. So all of those things all went into creating a merry band of space adventurers who always end up saving the world and kind of enjoy it, even though they complain about it. And their sentient spaceship, who is the smartest spaceship in the room. I'm going to read you a couple of scenes from the beginning of The Infinite Heist, which is the newest book in the series. Just to give you a feel for what it is. So, I would rather rub my face on an unshielded reactor core, Lexa Blue said. Or go skinny dipping in hard vacuum, Amber added. Keen scowled at them both. Oh, ha, ha. Very funny. I get it. I'm sorry I asked. Oh, no, wait, Lexa Blue said. I'd rather eat 3 helpings of that really disgusting, congealed thing that Pax tried to get us to eat at that market stall in Bellevue. Oh, yeah, the thing with the eyes. And the things. And that smell, like rotten vegetables baked in mold. And then burned, and then soaked in. All right, Keen interrupted, his voice sharp. I'll go by myself. I just thought it might make for a nice break. Skolas happens to be very nice this time of year. If you call being surrounded by a bunch of bookheads with no understanding of the real world all in the same place really nice, then yeah, I guess so. Yeah, didn't they make that whole planet one big campus just to keep them out of our hair? Keen walked away from them both. Fine, lesson learned. See, you learned something new and you didn't even have to leave the ship. You're both awful, the Maverick Heart said. He's been waiting for this conference for months. Oh, relax, junk pile. It's all in fun. He knows that. She leaned back from the quizzling board and stretched, cat-like, then ran a hand through the jagged crop of her blue-black hair. The light of the holographic game pieces glinted off the ebony sensor gem, where her right eye had once been, stark against the warm, sandy tone of her skin. The vertical scar was stark and white. I don't know. He seemed upset. Leave it be, Squib. I've known him a lot longer than you have. He'll be fine. Besides, we have a game to finish. She leaned forward over the tiers of the board again, already contemplating her next move. And I'm winning. You owe me 3 pressure suit inspections and 2 of my dinner-making shifts. Are you sure that's winning? You've tasted my cooking. I'll take it if it means I beat your ass. They played 4 more times, and Ember won back 2 of his shipboard chores, which he realized was the best he was likely to get. It was only then that he had noticed that Keen hadn't returned to the lounge. Okay, I'm out. Come on, Squib, you could still win the rest. 1 more hand. No chance. I managed to save a little bit of face. That's enough for me. Spoil sport. Hearing her grumble behind him, he headed aft. He found Keen in their quarters, seated on the edge of the bed. He immediately saw that Keen's eyes were open but glazed over, unseeing, a telltale sign that he was using the access node embedded in his brain to connect to know-it-all. Longtime users of the still high-end tech got that weird, unseeing expression whenever they used their nodes. Ember entered the room quietly, figuring Keen was making final arrangements for his trip, or perhaps just reading some new tech journal with news about the latest advancements. The thought of the old familiar habit made him smile. Not wanting to disturb Keen for fear of aggravating any lingering tensions over their teasing, he busied himself while he waited for Keen to finish whatever he was occupied with. He emptied the laundry cabinet, folding and putting each item away with precise care. Hey, it was my turn to do that. I'm not keeping score. He hung the last ship suit in the closet and came back to sit beside Keen. All set? Yep, room booked, and I've got a seat on one of the shuttles running attendees from Hub to the conference. But I thought we weren't due on Hub until 2 days before the conference, at least a week and a half travel time from Hub to Skolas. Yes, if I was going by interspace. Skolas has a gate now. Ah, that makes sense. I had no idea Sindel and her team were that far along in the implementation. Ember smiled at the memory of the whole gatecrasher incident, something he could do now that time had allowed him to heal. Now that he'd found Malika again, his old partner in crime. Literal crime, as they had been running grifts on wheels when they'd gotten caught up in the whole mess. They'd been dragged along with the Maverick Heart crew to defend the first stable wormhole generating station, the prototype for those that were springing up around more and more worlds, and it had fractured their friendship until they'd finally found each other again. He looked at Keen and saw, what, longing? There was something there in the expression, something only he might have noticed. I'm sorry if we pushed your buttons back there. No, I'm sorry. Keen leaned into Ember's shoulder and brought his hand up to touch his sleek, silvery hair, the strands slipping through his fingers like soft metallic threads, and the rich amber tone of Ember's skin seemed fair next to his. It's not like we don't joke about that all the time anyway. So what's different? Keen was silent a moment, and Ember watched him search for the words he wanted to say. Ember knew that look as Keen sorted his thoughts, ordering them as neatly and precisely as the gizmos and repairs he always had his hands in. I love being here. I love being here with you, Lexa Blue, and Brick. It's a hell of a good life, despite the constant life-threatening danger. Yeah, in spite of all that. This has been my home for a long time, and you're my family. But we don't speak your language. Yes, Keen said, the word an exhalation of relief at Ember's once again sharp understanding of the human mind. This conference is an opportunity to just let the tech junkie part of me out to run free, dig into it and share with people who get it, who can keep up with me and push me to think new things. Then why did you ask us to go along? I don't know. I guess I'm just used to thinking of us as a unit. I can't remember the last time I did something on my own. It's probably the last time your life wasn't in danger. Does seem to be a bit of a pattern for us, doesn't it? It does, but at least it keeps us from getting boring. That, my little thief, is something we will never be. Though I sometimes wonder what it would be like if we were. Well, considering this conference you're going to, you get to be as boring as you want, Ember said, ducking out of the way before Keen could shove him off the bed. This little scene just happens a little bit later. Sindel Kestra dropped into the seat of her two-person pod, exhausted from a long day of meetings with the implementation team at the Weaver's Willow Gate. Everything was on schedule and the new gate was fully operational and ready for public use. All the final test flights had gone exceptionally well, and some of the highest performing results of any particular site so far. And she'd gone over everything herself to ensure nothing had been missed. It had gone so well that she was leaving a day ahead of schedule. She hadn't even let her second-in-command Hetri know she was coming home. Maybe I can have a night to myself. One thing that had become abundantly clear to her on this trip was that the schedule was wearing on her. As much as she trusted her teams, she never let any gate come online until she had reviewed all the final testing data and given the okay herself. And with the continuing pressure from the Pan-Galactic Council to forge ahead and link all of the member worlds to the gate network, the mountain of information she was responsible for was constantly growing. Not to mention the toll it took on her personal life. The thought of Lexa Blue made her chest constrict. They hadn't seen each other in months. Enough! There was nothing to be gained by going down that path, not now. With the yawning black hole of her schedule sucking in all light from her surroundings, there didn't seem to be much she could do about it. With more force than she intended, she stabbed the comm and opened a channel to the hangar deck's controller. This is Pod 37 requesting departure clearance and gate transit confirmation. Clearance granted, and your transit coordinates are locked in for the transition to Hub. A glance at the pod's control interface confirmed her simple parabolic course from the bay to the gate's glide path was set and ready for her, requiring no actual piloting on her part. which is a good thing considering kind of how bad a pilot I am. She touched the limited intelligence pilot's activator and the metal ball of the pod lifted from the deck of the hangar, then flowed smoothly forward. The atmospheric field flashed as she passed through it, and then the pod was on its way. There was nothing to do but sit back and enjoy the ride. Despite the number of gates she had supervised and visited, this never got old. The pod arced out from the bay and the massive gate station's rim into the glittering studded black. She felt only the slightest inertial pull as the pod shifted course for gate transition. The station that had been a flat ring now seemed perched up on it. No up, no down. The reminder of the vast, directionless void of space sent a chill down her spine. The LI jockeyed her pod into final position, dead center of the sheet of milky opalescent energy that stretched across the gate's mouth, awaiting the final signal to open the stable wormhole at its heart. Pod 37 in position, Sindel said, leaning forward in her seat in anticipation. Gate energies at maximum, destination coordinates ping back clear, the controller said. Whenever you're ready, Director. The pod glided slowly forward, and Sindel thought of getting to sleep in her own bed again as the universe turned white. High above the surface of Hub, the gate flared to life, and the tiny pod exited the wormhole on a perfectly set trajectory to the complex that housed the main research locus for the gate project. The very same location it had set out from early that morning. Pod 37 descended through the drifting clouds over the complex, homing in on its base. With exacting precision, it located its landing berth, sending a ping to the complex's AI that it required charging, and receiving a reminder from the AI that its routine maintenance cycle was only days away. Accepting this information, the pod's pilot positioned the pod precisely over the landing pad and dropped to the surface. Its landing struts bent slightly, then came to rest. One final release of heat from the atmospheric friction as a puff of steam, and the pod's hatch folded open. As its engines cycled down, Pod 37 sat in silence, its hatch open, for there was no one aboard.